Hey everyone, welcome to the Smart in Public podcast. This is a podcast that discusses business, careers, and life through the eyes of public relations and communications experts. Today, we're going to talk about a bunch of things that have to do with the year that's recapped and the predictions ahead, including predictions for the year around comms, 2025 comms planning. We're going to talk about a bunch of the fun things that are coming up with lists and all of that kind of stuff that we see this time of year. And then just a bunch of kind of what's happening and what's happening. So stick around because in like 3 seconds, I'm going to start this episode. We're trying a new intro. Bear with us.
Is it working? I'm not sure.
Okay, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hello, everybody. How'd you like that?
I don't know. I like 5, 6, 7, 8 count in and then tell me that it's the Smart in Public podcast.
Yeah, okay.
But I appreciate trying new things because you're the creative powerhouse of this duo. So you just keep coming up with ideas and I'll shoot them down.
Oh God, thank God. Well, yeah. Speaking of ideas and things that we don't really know what we're talking about, should we talk about some whoopsies from our Jaguar episode before we dive into the topic today?
Feedback I received. Let me just tell you that my husband made it very clear that part of that discussion should be our dumb in private. Basically telling me that we know nothing about cars and that James Bond did not drive a Jaguar and he drove an Aston Martin. So I apologize to all the James Bond fans out there that we did not understand the difference, nor care really of what James Bond drives.
Yeah, he can stuff it. I honestly don't care. But, that's maybe a signal to Aston Martin to pick their shit up too.
I mean, we thought it was a Jaguar. So, I mean...
It made sense in my head. You know what? This is the problem of people that grew up without the internet. So, you and I are old enough where we used to just make things up. Or, our parents would just tell us things.
And we believe it.
And then we'd believe it.
Yeah.
And so then I have this habit now where sometimes I just do, you've known this for a long time, Duffy, but they're called Katie facts. And if I believe something and I think that I've heard it somewhere, I will just take it as my fact and I will run with it.
Yeah.
It's been a habit I've had to unlearn for ages. I feel like the Jaguar was a quintessential Katie fact.
It was a classic Katie fact.
Textbook.
And also Katie Duffy just took that fact and ran with it. So no fact checking here, just take face value things. But also, I would like to pat ourselves a little bit on the back because I do feel like what we referenced in terms of their strategy and what they're going to do has come true.
Oh, yeah. The car's out.
Point that out to everyone that these masterminds who have no insight into the Jaguar strategy pretty much predicted what the Jaguar strategy was.
Smashed it. Wish they did it in a tighter timeline, but...
Yeah.
I saw the CEO came out and he was like, please trust us in our strategy.
It's never good if your CEO's like, please believe us.
Yeah, just trust us. I feel like when you get to that point, then you've already lost them. But you know what? We were right. So suck it, everyone.
Also, the car looks weird in my view. And again, I preface all of this to say clearly we don't know much about cars. And I'm even forgetting, my husband referenced what the car looks like. And I think one of the things, it was something mixed with something, but one of them was Lady Penelope's car in Thunderbirds. And then I was like, you've just aged yourself massively because I don't watch Thunderbirds, never did. So
I feel like it looks like a Bentley and a, the Porsche
Panamera. Trying to talk cars again?
Oh, God damn it. The Porsche Panamera and a Bentley had a baby.
Okay.
Tell Andrew that. See what he says.
We'll see what he says. He'll listen. He can give us some feedback.
Andrew, let me know.
Wait, regardless of the mix of cars, do you think it looks good?
Yeah, I don't mind it, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think I'd have to see it in person first because it's still, when you look at the photos in the announcement pictures, it still looks like an AI image. It's such a weird-looking car. But who knows? Maybe I'd like it. I mean, how big is the sunroof? That's usually how I judge all my preferences on cars and how I select them.
Does it have a seat warmer? Like in winter, will my butt be warm? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're experts on cars and and at least car strategy. So we've nailed that. What else is going on in your world? What's top of mind for you right now?
What's top of mind for me right now? Actually, I have something a little bit more sobering that I saw this week that I just wanted to do a little bit of a shout out on. I don't know if you saw this, Boyson, but I think Edelman laid off a fair amount of staff this week.
Yeah.
And, I was reading kind of what they were saying about it. And, I think in general, the messaging that they put out there was, I think acknowledging how hard it is, acknowledging where the business is at, which I think is good. But I think with all of these things, it's always important to remember, like, at the end of those numbers are humans with friends, family, lives, etc. And so, I think just wanted to do a bit of a shout out to those people. If you were part of those layoffs, just know, like, lots of us have been through it. It's not easy, but sometimes it's also a good thing. It kind of forces you to think about where you want to be and what you want to do. And use your network. I mean, that's what we said originally when we were talking about, when I got made redundant. It's really important. Reach out to people, have coffees. I know personally, if anyone reached out to me, I'd be more than happy to have a chat and kind of, have that conversation if people are looking for what they need to be doing and wanting to build their network. But, I guess I just wanted to call that out. It's a tough market at the moment. I know Edelman had lost a few big clients, and they had some spin-off brands that I think were part of these layoffs, were part of these sort of spin-off agencies doing specialist work. And, when you lose a big anchor client, that's really tough. And so, as a business, it's tough for them to make that decision, and it's tough for the people at the end of it. So, just wanted to call that out because I think it's never a nice news story to hear PR people at that scale losing jobs.
Yeah, no, I agree. And especially, being able to identify with that list and you see the articles come out, like when I was laid off from my job, I remember seeing the articles coming out and kind of the positioning from the company. You can't help but be angry or feel personally let down. But the biggest thing that came through was, like you said, my network. And so please, if any of you know Duffy or I, like, we're more than happy to help and to point you in the right direction or give advice, or at least, like, be somebody that gets it for you and be a vent person. But it's shit, and especially around the holidays. I mean, it's just a tough one in general.
So I just wanted to call that out because I think we got to stand together in this industry, and it's tough in agency life, right? Like, it's it's not easy when you rely on clients for business, and clients are going through tough times. It's just so we see you.
We're here for you. Can I take a hard right and ask you a question?
Please do.
Did you get your Spotify Wrapped at all?
Well, Katie Boyson,
I already know what you're going to say, and it's so
what I'm going to say. It's that no, I didn't, because I'm also not on TikTok. I don't do Spotify Wraps.
You're so annoying.
I basically live internet free. No, I don't. But I will tell you what my Spotify Wrap would be, which is why it's not even worth doing, is because the only time I'm really listening to Spotify is when I'm in the car with all three of my kids. And so the current faves are the Polar Express soundtrack.
What is that soundtrack even? Like the movie? Or is it like what they play on the train? Is that a real train? Oh, God, what have I said?
Well, actually, this is a fun fact.
Okay.
So it is a movie. It's like one of the original, I don't know if it's CGI, because again, we've reiterated.
It's the Tom Hanks one.
The Tom Hanks one.
Yes, that's a weird one. I never watched it.
Noah loves it, froths over it, loves Polar Express, has a Polar Express train in his room, and we must listen to the Polar Express soundtrack. So yes, it's the music from the movie, of which weirdly there's a song by Steve Tyler from Aerosmith. It's called Rockin' Around the World. But anyway, weird. So we listened to that, and then my girls like the show Peppa Pig, but there's also this Peppa Pig album, which if you want to like have a new torture method, just shout out to those torturers out there. Peppa Pig. That's what it is.
Yeah, waterboarding. It's this album.
100%.
Do you think they play that? You know, like in Guantanamo, how they would do with the... Yeah.
That's what I'm imagining. Just through the speakers, loud as anything, over and over and over again, the Peppa Pig music. So that would be my Spotify Wrap. There you go. That's my Spotify Wrap. Polar Express Big.
That's like the best birth control you've ever given me.
If you want more, there's plenty more where that comes from. I am the ultimate contraception.
Oh my God. No.
Did you get yours?
I did get mine. Mine was hilarious. I could, and listen, if you didn't know who I was and you just looked at my Spotify rap summary, I could be
In jail.
25 in jail. I could be 25 or I could be 80 years old. So my number
sums you up.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
My number one played song was Don't Dream It's Over by Crowded House.
I mean, classic.
I just like to work to it.
But that's nice. The upper end of that age category.
Yeah. And my second most played song was The River Unbroken by Dolly Parton. But I know. But my number one album my number one artist was Rage Against the Machine.
It's quite a contrast. It is, which really does explain you, I have to say.
And I had it, apparently, because they do a breakdown by like months. I had like a 3-month period where I was only listening to French DJs.
Of course you were.
So listen, it's a spectrum for me, my music genre and preference. But
good. I feel like that's a well-rounded human.
I know. I promise we'll get to our topics in a second. I just have to say, I'm in the 8th percentile of Spotify listeners of true crime podcasts.
Oh, what, like in the world?
I don't know. It said I'm in the 8th percentile of Spotify.
I guess that's globally. I'm going to take that as globally.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm really happy that they didn't release was like audiobooks that you listen to, because I listened to 4 of the 5 A Court of Roses and Thorns series books.
I was about to say, did you listen to Spicy Romance?
I did listen to Spicy Elves.
Actually, Spicy Fantasy.
Yeah, I'm not through the 5th one yet.
I've read them all as well, don't you worry.
Have you read them all? Did you read the last one? I'm on the last one. I'm on chapter like 57. It's embarrassing.
Side note. Who would you want to go out with in that one?
It's so easy for me.
Who is
Cassius.
Oh, okay.
Hands down.
Interesting. I've just started her other one, Crescent City, I think it's called.
Listen to that one. No.
I haven't started it yet, but I just downloaded it on my Kindle.
Do you read them or do you read them? You don't listen to them?
I'm a Kindle reader because it's like, I love it.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about this, but I usually prefer audiobooks. However, I'm thinking about reading the next series from her, because listening to some of those scenes through an audiobook make me like close my eyes and clench my butt cheeks.
Yeah, especially, actually, I think it is the last book.
Yeah, the last book has been the most brutal. And like I look around and I'm like, are my headphones working? Like,
are you on the book where it's like pretty much focused on Nesta?
Yeah, I'm on that one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that out loud would be quite wild.
Well, it's in my headphones, but still, I feel like I'm like getting away with murder.
Yeah, but also like when I'm reading it on a plane. Yeah. Like
I don't want anyone seeing my book cover.
Red on my shoulder, I'd be like, whoa. Yeah, so it is a bit, anyway, side note.
All right, we've gone way too far off topic. Anyway, 15 minutes though. That's not too bad.
I feel like this is just a symptom of where we are in the year. I feel like this is such a December conversation. It's like we're tired. We should be doing stuff, but we're tired. We just want to talk about Spicy Romance.
Yes, 100%. We're in silly season officially, not only with work, but also with just our podcast.
Yep. We've entered it.
Yep. All right. So moving into the actual conversation. Here we go, folks. Let's start out with, we're going to talk about 2025 comms planning best practices. So really thinking about, if you haven't already started to think about your comms planning already, you should definitely be doing that. The last thing you want to do is have your sales kickoff and not have a plan around what that strategy is going to look like, because then you're planning your year and then planning your sales kickoff and it's mayhem. So we're going to walk through some best practices and kind of share thoughts around that and timelines and how to get the most out of your planning.
Yeah. What do you reckon is step one?
I think step one, I could go in two different ways. I'm going to make a hard decision. I'm going to say step one is to start your cross-functional meetings with your counterparts and stakeholders across the business to understand where their head is at. So meeting with your sales leaders, meeting with your, service teams, meeting with, I'm talking about obviously from a tech company perspective, but like meeting with your executives and your product teams and your marketing team, and making sure that not only do they know that you're planning, but like what they are counting on in the year and what their goals are.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go one step removed from that. I think there's one thing I like to do to start with is like a bit of a reflection on the year that's been and kind of things that really worked, things that didn't, that kind of reflection piece on like, did we nail what we said we were going to nail? What changed? What pivoted? Just to give a sense of like, do we feel like this year was overall a win? And in which case, are we staying the course? Are we massively pivoting? All of those kind of reflection pieces. And I think trying to get some feedback from your stakeholders on that, I think is super helpful. And then I'm totally with you on, then I think it's about information gathering. Like, who do I need to talk to? And again, every business is going to be different, right? But like, who are those stakeholders within the business that are driving the business forward, have product lines, whatever it might be, that impact the way you go to market. And I think going and setting up those cross-functional meetings early, because even some people need you to set that up to start thinking about it in some ways, because I think sometimes those teams operate so month to month, quarter to quarter, whatever it might be, that you going and saying, hey, like, have you thought about what the roadmap looks like? What, can you give us it sort of is a forcing function for them to be like, oh, actually, there's these three things or whatever it might be.
Totally. And I think it's so easy to get caught when you start that process of setting up those meetings, to get caught to want to protect your team by having your plan done before you meet with another team. And I think that's such a mistake that people make. Like, go in there, have a bit of vulnerability, saying we're starting the process. Here's the feedback we got from last year. That's a great suggestion, by the way. It's so important and so overlooked, doing the feedback round and review round. But like, here's what we think we did well. Here's where we want to improve. Here's the opportunities. You might not have a plan yet, because that's the other thing. You try to set a meeting up with your sales team and they're like, we haven't done our plan. There's no need to meet. And so being able to go in and say, let's just have a brainstorm. Like we can walk you through our lessons. We haven't finished our plan yet either. And getting it on the books. You don't have to have a perfect plan baked out.
No.
It's step one in the process.
Yeah, I think just a discussion even from their side. What are customers saying? What are you hearing? All of that stuff. I think the other piece, and look, if you're in-house, like this might be a piece that you could get your agency to help with concurrently while you do the internal meetings, is like an external landscape kind of assessment, competitor assessment would be helpful. Like anything that's like,
that's so good.
Has the landscape changed? Are there new competitors? Are there competitors doing different things? If you're in a market where it's relevant what the government is doing, is there new regulation, budgets, like any of that sort of stuff, I think is super helpful to go. And it might just be a case of a check-in to say, like, has anything fundamentally shifted in the external market, that we need to be aware of that we weren't looking at the beginning of the year?
Yeah. I also like the idea of checking in early with your customer marketing team to say, like, who are you targeting? Like, what are you hearing from the business for next year in terms of priorities of types of customers? Like, what products maybe we want to emphasize? Or they're the ones that are talking to the customers all the time. Like, what are you hearing from them as things that are important that we could potentially highlight in our strategy throughout the year moving forward?
Yep. So I think you do all your kind of information gathering. I then think it's one of those weird ones where, like, really the plan probably won't come together until, well, if you're in Australia here as well, we have a massive, like, quiet down period around Christmas. So my usual advice in Australia is, like, get as much done as possible in, like, end of November, early December.
Yeah.
So that you at least have done the information gathering, the external landscape, like all of that stuff, knowing that then there's going to be this kind of gap when nobody wants to talk to you about planning and everybody's having a holiday. And then you can come back in the new year, kind of, you've got the basis of the plan and that information gathering. And then I would do like a straw man of kind of big company moments and big external moments and start to plot the year. I think is a good way to start, is to like, what do we even know to be true that isn't going to change?
Yep.
We know is there, you know, and most companies have these. Most people have tentpole moments, you know, that they know there's going to be something that they're going to need to do.
Yep. Yep. I think was going to be either my next, or having that kind of outline of, aside from, I guess it's the same. I was thinking of the event calendar of what we know to be true and versus what you can create, and putting that on a timeline.
Yeah.
And then also starting to work with your teams on what milestones are we going to have, what products, what events are we going to own, starting to put that calendar together, because then the next step for me after you have that calendar of activity is budget. Like understanding your budget and then saying, okay, well, here's where we're going to scale up. Here's where we're going to pull back.
Yeah.
And
I think I forgot a step. Like working it through in my brain, and I'm imagining the planning deck. But I think once you've done your information gathering and you kind of have a sense of where the business is headed, I think as a comms team and the external and competitive landscape, as a comms team, you need to take a step back and say, okay, well, what do we want our goals and objectives to be for the comms program, right? So it might be to deepen the market's knowledge about X. It might be to diversify our storytelling into a new area. It might be whatever those kind of objectives of the comms program is, being super clear on, if we achieve anything this year, like these are the 4 things that we want to try and achieve.
Yeah.
Because I think if you've got that as your goalpost, then plotting the calendar, looking at all the stuff, because often what happens, and I think this is kind of the challenge of planning, is like you might have a team being like, yeah, we need to go big on, I don't know, whatever, a certain product, right?
Yeah.
But when you actually look at the market, when you look at what revenue that's going to bring in, like that might not actually be a place for comms to own, right? Like it might be, you know what, that's actually a sales play and our time is better spent on something else. And so I think just trying to remember the goals of your comms program and really what comms can influence and drive, and then making some tough decisions on that as well.
Yeah. So let me try to recap. We've obviously rehearsed this, you guys.
It's a well-oiled machine.
Well-oiled machine. No. So we're saying do your research gathering and kind of competitive analysis. Then start meeting cross-functionally, start to get an assessment of what the business is prioritizing. Set your goals and your own KPIs for your comms function and what that looks like. Then start to think about how that looks on a timeline.
Yep.
And then, I mean, budget's probably woven through the entire thing, so maybe not thinking about it as its own.
I think just at least like having those conversations early, because you don't want to be the last to the table asking.
That's true.
You know?
And then I would also say around that time when you get back from holiday too, is when companies are starting to think about sales kickoffs. That's when messaging is starting to happen. And then I would say that's your narrative refresh. That's when you go in and establish what your key pillars are going to be, where your narrative needs to be updated, how it's going to change this year versus last year.
And look, it depends on the company you're in. Some companies change their messaging like they change their underwear, you know, like all the time. But some companies are pretty consistent. So I guess it depends where you work. But I think just having the diligence to say, are we pivoting? Has it changed? Is the narrative still relevant? You know, and kind of having that due diligence to do that. And then for a lot of people, it will change and it will be new messaging. So adapting to that. And for others, it might just be like, actually, it's stay the course. We're in a good place, you know, all good.
I would also say that, the narrative, the yearly narrative is in partnership with the marketing team to really align there. Like we're telling two different audiences the same story. How does it resonate in those audiences? But I would say best practice is like update and check on your narrative once a quarter. Like
Yeah.
don't wait for the year to then undertake this huge project of revamping your narrative. Like check in on it along the way. You need it for your executive proof points
Yeah.
anyways and kind of what your talking points are. So it's not as daunting as it sounds if you do it by quarter, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's next in your mind?
I think you then start to figure out from a comms team perspective, are there any activities or big moments like outside of what is already existing from a company structure perspective?
Mm-hmm.
So like you might have a big company event, great, you're going to do something around that. You might have a big marketing campaign that you're going to help support with comms. But are there things that you want to own?
Yeah.
Like big projects, big bets, things
Yeah.
you want to go do. I think just that's where I would start. Like you've got your narrative in place, you got your big tentpole moments, you know what's kind of coming from a product perspective. But are there things that as a comms team you want to own, do, and kind of I would have this as a section in the plan that's like big bets,
Yeah.
big impact, things that I guess the comms team drives, and you would still might need support from the rest of the business and marketing, but it's owned by comms. It's to create that moment of impact.
Yeah. So thinking about big bets could be like comms led reports
Yep.
or
Roundtable, media
round
roundtable.
tables that you
Yeah.
want to do. Yep. That's a
Yeah,
great one.
new research, yeah, anything like that. I think where it's like you have a narrative to support, but you don't have sort of a news hook or a news moment. Like, how are you going to create one?
I think big bet storytelling planning is the most fun part of planning.
Yeah,
I love that.
and actually, it might be for some people. And again, like this is so hard to do when we don't know. Like we're just generally talking, and it's like everybody's business is different. But like one of the things we also used to do is a little bit is big story mapping. So like you might have one big story that you want to get for the year, right? That's a really impactful, it's going to be a long lead to work with the journalists. They might need to interview multiple people at the company.
Yeah.
You've got it kind of as your tentpole story for the year. So like that sort of big moment, but also potentially big story mapping in terms of like, what are the three big stories we want to land this year and with who and what publication?
Yeah, and I think you can do that from a company perspective and also an executive perspective. So
yeah.
if you're looking after a CEO, like what are the three stories we need the CEO to tell this year? How does it come together? And sure, that might change. Like, I mean, company priorities shift, but having that plan and sharing that with your executive makes you look like a fucking superstar too. So,
Yeah.
I would also say in alignment with that, media mapping. So going through and saying like, where are relationships that are strong? Where do the ones that need nurturing? And what are the ones that like we need to start talking to? Especially with how much the landscape is changing. So doing a media map, I think is kind of one of those key pieces at the end.
Yep. I think that's right. And then like maybe some issues mapping if you're in an issues rich environment is like, where are we tracking against, those external issues that we know are going to come up? But that's not going to be relevant for everyone.
Yeah. And I think those types of things like FAQs, issues mapping, media mapping, your narrative updates, like those are things that you should be updating every single quarter anyways, but doing the work early and then you chip away at it and then you have it ready to go by like end of Jan, probably. Like, I feel like that just makes it so much easier for the team and for you from a mental capacity standpoint.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's it.
Cool. All right, everyone, you're set.
You're all set. Just follow those really clear instructions.
Perfect. Clear, clear, clear. That's what we pride ourselves on in this podcast. Okay, so let's do predictions. I've got like buckets. Do you want me to say buckets and I'll say mine and you say yours?
Sure, you start.
Some I've filled out and some I haven't. But first bucket is for internal comms. I would say my prediction is social issues and a stance on government policies will become more of a part of in an internal comms person's job. like deciding what the stance is moving forward. Do we talk to employees about things that are coming out in the news around like government and issues, social issues, and that sort of thing?
I am going to challenge that.
Okay.
I reckon there's going to be a little bit of, this is so hard when it's like every business is different, but I do think there's going to be a bit of a shift back to the attitude of we are a company here to do work.
Yeah.
We're not here to comment on every issue because I feel a bit of issue fatigue with companies. That's what I'm kind of, so I don't know. These are predictions, so who knows? But I feel like some companies are going to shift back to this is not something we want to get engaged in, but maybe particularly because of the political landscape and everything that's going on.
Yeah. I just feel like employees want to hear opinions. Like they want to work for a company that stands for what they stand for more and more.
Yeah.
I think, you know what, maybe the better prediction is this is going to be a really big topic for comms people
Yes.
into next year.
I think that's the prediction, is the battle.
Yeah.
Or the conflict and tension between what employees want and where a company should not engage. What does that look like? And I think internal comms people are going to have to have a seat at that table.
Yeah.
And figure out, because I do think it's hard. I think it's very hard to meet everybody's needs.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the internal comms struggle, is like, be prepared that if you do want to make a comment internally about some issue, that opens the door that you might do it for something else. And so I think coming back to like the objectives, the company values, like you need to keep the leadership team aligned because leadership team members will have different opinions as well. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's which way it will fall, who knows, but that tension piece I think will definitely become more and more of an issue.
I think it could be a really easy trap for thinking for comms teams that work for smaller companies too, the thinking that only bigger companies will have to deal with this issue. Because there's so many more people and voices and opinions. But what I'm actually seeing with a lot of my consulting work for like those 50 employees or less companies is that they feel like they know the CEO personally because of that close proximity. And so they want to know that from their CEO. Really so good. Like it kind of reaches across all company sizes.
I think that's a great one. Yep. I agree with that.
External comms, you go.
Well, I think it was interesting whenever he said it, when Elon said the people are the media now. I don't know if you saw that. And then like a lot of journalists, were quite rightly quite upset about that. Yeah. But it's just, I think this goes to what we talked about in an episode ages ago. I think it was one of our first episodes. But this idea that like media is just a bit mad at the moment. And I think there's kind of this like this whole realm of X and what's happening in that space. Then you have sort of your traditional media, and then you have like podcasts and all these new media forms, and I'm including ourselves in this, who are not run by journalists, but there are a lot of podcasts creating commentary, creating opinions. And so I think my prediction is that's only going to get more confusing.
Yeah.
And I think as we head into a new administration in the US, we have an election in Australia.
Yep.
I'm just seeing the media like swirl already starting, and we haven't even called our election here. And the media are going into what I call election mode. It's like, these kind of out there stories. They're really trying to hunt for different things across both parties.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the like summary of the prediction is, but I just feel like we're in a really interesting tipping point around how people consume news.
Yeah.
What is news? Who owns the news? And who owns fact checking, all of that stuff. And it's a continuation of what we talked about in that episode of just like the due diligence on an end user now is so high in terms of like figuring out what's real.
Yep.
what's just someone's opinion.
Yeah.
And I hope that we continue to support independent publishing and journalism and all those things. But I just fear for that in 2025, to be honest.
Yeah. I think in alignment with that, I think we're going to see potentially more companies coming off of X and into new into new social platforms like Blue Sky and where some of those platforms that are a bit more, I don't like the word is like gentle in content.
It'll be interesting to see how they evolve next year, because I think you're right. Like, I'm seeing people moving across.
I also think that people see it as an opportunity to get a big following in a new platform that's going to boom because people are going somewhere else, like the same way that people kind of flocked to Threads for a while, and then got bigger followings than they did on X, and then they just stayed on Threads, or people are always kind of looking, or companies or influencers are looking for that, like, what's the next TikTok where I can get in early and build my following and like have that kind of, like, I think there's opportunity with that, and we'll see a lot of companies experimenting what their messaging and presence can look like on different social platforms.
Yep, I agree. I think layoffs are going to continue. Sadly, I think it's going to be an ongoing, like, annual thing for a lot of companies, more than it has before. I think we've gotten into this space of companies that had never done them before are now doing them fairly regularly, and I just see that continuing into next year, sadly.
Yeah.
But then you see, like, all these new companies cropping up, and I think an understanding of the importance of comms, I think, it seems to be rising, I think. So maybe there's a balance there.
Well, I think the importance of comms, particularly with our episode that we talked about, like the CCO plus role, and how we're starting to think about comms in the more broader, like, sense of many different types of areas of skills. What I do think is those layoffs will have an impact for people to have an opportunity to learn different areas of skills of comms, either because they go into a job because they need it and it's maybe not their preference or expertise, but they get to learn a new space, or you're a company that's scaled way back and now you have a huge workload and you're doing multiple jobs across, and you're going to be able to learn those skills. So maybe a forcing function for better preparing people for that. I'm trying to be optimistic.
I think so. I think maybe it won't be at the scale that we've seen it before. So that's probably a good thing. But I think it's just, and I'm not just, I think in general, the business landscape has changed, I think. And I think that's going to continue in 2025.
Yeah. And then I would just say, like, anyone that is in government and public affairs, just, like, put your seatbelt on, baby.
Strap in. That's a whole other, like, geopolitical landscape. Who knows? I think that's probably, for me as a comms person, and I mean, obviously I'm in a space now where it's extremely relevant, but just more broadly, I think for all comms people, where the world takes a turn, next year, I think will be an interesting thing to think about, because, if you're putting out campaigns when there's something quite big going on in the world, it's something you have to pause and think about, right? And so I think continuing to think about tone and right time, all of that stuff. I hope the world settles down next year. That's my hope. I hope we can get some of these issues resolved around the world, but I don't know if that's going to happen, and potentially there'll be more. So I think just thinking about that as comms people and the external world in which you're operating and what that looks like.
I also would love to have somebody from that world on the podcast. So if you are interested in coming on, like, and you work in government affairs or any kind of, like,
I'd love, like, a media advisor for a minister or something like that.
God, it would be good. I would love to have someone like that on the show. So put your hand up. We'll have you on. We'd love that. Any other predictions? Anything that's kind of top of mind for you? Anything with AI? I think AI is going to make our lives easier, but I think it's going to make it harder in a way that companies that maybe don't have comms programs are going to think that they can AI their PR.
Yes,
And so it might be
that's a
harder
good
for
one.
consultants.
Yeah.
But I think what will happen is maybe that's like the beginning of the year where people are trying to save budget and they don't want to have this like, extra pay. So they do this AI approach. This is just a prediction. But then probably by mid-year, they'll be like, shit, that's not working because we
Yeah.
don't know actually how to execute on it properly. And
Yeah.
so they start hiring. That would be my prediction.
I think you're right that smaller companies will try and do it with AI tools.
Mm-hmm.
Because realistically, an AI tool can write a press release.
Yeah.
That's true. Is it going to be a good press release? Not sure. Is
Will it
it?
fold into your strategy? Probably
Yeah,
not.
exactly.
Will it?
Exactly. And so I think that's and will it manage an issue when that comes up? Like, no. So I think you're right. I think that people will try. I just don't think that's not its job. And I think I don't fear AI for comms personally.
Mm.
I think it's a tool that we can use. I think we should learn how to use it.
Same.
Like, great, but I don't see it. I'm not. It doesn't concern me. Maybe it should. Maybe I'm living in a dreamland. But to me, I think it's an add-on, not a replacement for us. But I guess for my own sense, I'm so fatigued by AI stories. Um, and but I don't see it slowing down. But I do think in Australia in particular, we're at a really interesting point with AI. I think we just went through a Senate inquiry that looked at the use of data and looked at all of the big tech companies. There's a lot of fear around it. I think there's a lot of still miseducation, or people who aren't educated on the differences in different AI tools.
Yeah.
So I think there's like AI for business, which I think makes sense, and there's a lot of talk about that. But like this overall sense of what AI is going to do is still, Australians are still quite fearful, quite cynical.
Mm.
And so it'll be interesting to see how that debate moves forward or doesn't. And, there's a lot of stuff going on in Australia at the moment. We just implemented the social media ban for kids under 16.
I want to ask Seamus about that.
We're one of the first. Yeah, we need Seamus's take. We need Seamus's take on all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we'll get him on before the end of the year. But yeah, I just think Australia is going to be an interesting market to try and see where the attitude shift happens, if it does. Yeah, but I just feel like I just feel like it's AI everywhere at the moment.
I think to that point though, like journalists, because they're probably tired of it too. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, journalists are going to start asking instead of like, "What's your AI?" How much did you raise AI company for your fund? Did you do in fundraising? And the questions are gonna start turning towards how are your customers using them? At what percentage are they actually deploying your product? Because what we're seeing is like, there's this crazy stat that like I think it was Bain that released in their report that it's like 78% of companies that are trying to put AI into their products or trying to implement AI, only 30% of those companies are actually deploying and using AI technology. And so like, I don't know, like I think journalists are catching on to that where it's like all these AI tools and co-pilots and all that, but then people actually aren't able to deploy them because of legacy systems and other complications like bad data and things like that are keeping them from being able to actually execute on deploying their products. So maybe journalists will start valuing more of like, give me a customer that can talk about what your product has done. So maybe that's an angle for pitching versus.
I think we have to go to the next layer down.
Mm-hmm.
Because
like, you got to start putting the rubber to the road, people.
Yeah, we've released all the products. The products are there. People get it. People get that it's going to help business, but like, is it? And what does that look like? I agree with you. I think that's the next layer for next year is like really demonstrating with real case studies. And that's if you're in the business space. I think there's other areas that are different, but I think, definitely start thinking about that and pushing your business leaders to give you real world examples of like where someone's using it actively.
So do you have a dumb and private?
Oh, I sure do.
Okay.
Sure do. Well, other than us not knowing anything about cars, which was a submitted dumb in private from my husband, mine is visual, so we'll put it up on Instagram, but I'm going to hold my finger up. It's got a
Oh
bandage on
no.
for those listening at home. So, you know, when you like, I think it's a dumb in private because I kind of knew it was going to happen and I still was doing it. So I got a package in the mail and we just got home from like picking the kids up. The kids are running wild around the house. I'm trying to get dinner done, but I was like, I'll unwrap the package. So I unwrap the package and it's got those like little air pillows, like the plastic little air pillows to keep it secure. And I was like, I got to put this rubbish away. So I've got to cut the air pillows. And of course I was moving at pace because I'm trying to get it done while also trying to get dinner ready with the kids.
Because you're a mom on the go.
I'm literally. And in my head, I said to myself, and by the way, we realized we had no milk. So Andrew had gone out to get milk. So I'm like, he's out. All the kids are running around. I'm trying to get dinner ready. And so in my head, I go, don't do this too fast because you might cut yourself. But then I did it too fast and my finger was underneath. And I literally, with no delay, like I went full force as if I was a piece of. So like the edge of my finger is missing. And also because I'm a mum, I've not done anything about it. I just wrapped it up. Now I'm like, it's kind of still really sore and it sort of throbs every day.
How many days are we talking?
I think we're on 2.5 now.
Okay.
And I looked at it last night and I was like, oh, does
Have
not
you had a
look
tetanus
good.
shot lately?
No. And then I was like, I looked at it last night and I was like, it looks pretty bad. Like I've lost sort of the tip of my finger. But I'll just wrap it up again. So that's my other dumb in private is that like mums have no time to sort themselves out. So just hope for the best. They don't get sepsis and that my finger grows back.
Can you just go to the doctor? I mean, healthcare is free in your country. Just please do it for me.
Sorry, I just don't have time. Anyway, so that's my dumb in private is like literally had the thought in my head to slow down and don't do this right now. It's probably stupid.
Oh,
And then went, nah.
You did yourself dirty.
Yeah, I ignored my brain, as my son would say. That's his latest thing. He's like, he's not doing something right. And I tell him, he's like, but my brain is telling me to do it that way. And I'm like, how do I argue with that? That's quite clever.
I'm sorry, but that line is proof that that is your fucking child.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
He's me embodied in a 4-year-old. Yeah. So I'll be like, sweetie, please hurry up and put your pajamas on. Like it's bedtime. Let's hurry up. Taking a long time. My brain is telling me to go slow.
Oh my God.
What do you do with that? Parents
Nothing.
write in. What do I do with that? I don't think there's anything I can do with that. I'm like, that's his brain. That's what his brain is telling him. Anyway, that's mine. Do you have one?
Yeah, so mine's it wasn't in private, like there were people around and it affects people. So essentially, it's a Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah,
This is a Thanksgiving and we knew this would happen.
Yeah.
So cooking actually went well. You know what didn't go great was my mom's birthday is December 15th and we're going to be out of town visiting our friends that live in Vail. So I got a call from my dad maybe like 2 weeks ago and he was like, hey, mom's birthday, she's gonna have some friends over for lunch. And my mom's been in a wheelchair. She had surgery on her foot, so she's been like bored to fucking death. She's like me, she's a busybody, so she's just like dying.
Not sitting home, yeah.
Oh God, yeah. So I was really happy to hear that because I knew we weren't going to be able to be there for her birthday. And I was like, oh, thank God the girls are coming over and they're going to have like a boozy brunch at home.
Nice. Yeah.
And so I was talking to Mom while I was cooking at Thanksgiving and I was like, Mom, forgot to tell you I'm not going to be there for your birthday, but I'm so glad that the girls are coming. Like, that's such a relief. I'll send you guys some champagne and flowers and you guys can enjoy that. And my mom goes, the girls are coming? And my dad from his office across the house goes, it was a surprise.
I was going to say, I knew as soon as I was like, oh, Jerry Boyson was planning a nice little surprise. And Katie Boyson.
To be fair, the girls planned it proactively and then told Dad. Dad forgot to tell me it was a surprise. And so I did not know. And then, but you know what? Mom said it worked out for the best. One, because then she can get ready and like know that the girls are coming over and look cute. Otherwise she'll be in her jammies in a wheelchair. Like,
yeah.
You know, and then also she said, because she cried when I told her because she was so touched by her friends doing that surprise for her. She was like, it's better
Aw.
that I know now and I get the tears out because otherwise I'll just be a blubbering mess.
And now she can get excited.
I know, but I ruined mom's birthday surprise party. So
Sure.
that was my dumb
Sure.
and private.
I mean, Jerry missed a vital piece of that information when he shared that news with you. But
This is the story of my life with my
I would blame
father.
Jerry, quite frankly.
I do, and I blame him for many things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, that was good. So, thank you everybody for listening. If you have a topic or you have an idea for a guest or anything, please email us at hello@smartandpublicpod.com. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok. We're now TikToking at Smart and Public Pod. And we'll talk to you next week. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, bye.